Hello YouTube, this is Retro Rewind here, just doing a quick video in response to Steve Benways' ArcadeTag. Got a nice cup of hot coffee here, not tea like Retro Gamer. Coffee's more my type. So without further ado, let's do the first question. So what was your first experience of an arcade? Well, where I live near Chesterfield, there isn't that many arcades, and there hasn't been that many arcades around here. I remember when I was about 15 there was an old shop which was converted into an arcade at Chesterfield, but by that time a lot of the older arcades like your Pac-Man and stuff had moved on. It was more like your Street Fighter 2s and your Art of Fighting and all those type of arcades. A few 3D shoot 'em ups from Japan with the down scrolling but with the 3D graphics. So I didn't really frequent them very often. The very first sort of memory I've got of an arcade was at a shop where I live at the moment, and they had, I think it was Karate Champ with the 2 joysticks, and I remember with the 10p's going down to me where my grandma lived, and me and my brother would go down and we'd go over the road and play on the arcade machine, play on the Karate Champ. I think after a while as well they also had Double Dragon, and I've got vivid memories of playing Double Dragon and eating these sweets called nerds, which were sour flavoured little clumps of sweet, and I really can remember playing Double Dragon and eating those for hours and hours and hours, popping 10 pences in. So that was really my first experience of a type of arcade. It wasn't really an arcade, but that's what I remember playing the games on most, I suppose. Have you ever repeatedly gone somewhere odd or unusual just because they had had arcade games? Not really. As I said, it was more the shop down where I live, because there was no arcades round about where I live, not proper arcades. I remember the first big proper massive arcade that opened was quite a few miles away from here in Sheffield at Meadow Hall, and when that opened, they had a massive arcade upstairs with the proper big arcade machines. I remember, I think they had the full-size Ridge Racer car there with a big massive cinema screen that went all the way round, and you sat inside and drove the car. They actually sat in a proper car and drove it as an opening, I suppose, a spectacular thing to get to go and look at the arcade. After that they did have Galaxian 3D as well, which was very similar. They converted where the car was to like a spaceship, and it was like a big screen, and it was the same type of thing there. I suppose the most vivid memories I have there was playing Killer Instinct, or watching my brother play Killer Instinct, trying to pull off the 26 and 50 whatever hit combos. What they used to do is they used to go on, play it, and the winner stayed on. So if you were good at it, then somebody else would come along and try and challenge you. So my brother was pretty good at that, and at Street Fighter 2. Unfortunately I wasn't really a fighting game person, so I'd probably go off and play on Daytona or Ridge Racer or whatever racing games he had in at the time. So what was your favourite old school arcade, and what was it like? I suppose, as in game, my favourite arcade old school game would have to be Double Dragon, because I've spent so many hours playing that. Later on I suppose it was Daytona. That was my favourite arcade for a long time. I know Steve prefers Ridge Racer, which I do agree on. Single player Ridge Racer is better, but it had to be Daytona. I was quite fortunate really, because when I was about 14-15 I also had a Saturday job in my local computer game shop called Microfun at Chesterfield, and so I was always aware of the latest consoles and games and computers, or selling them and playing on the games when it was in the quiet period. I remember vividly having sensible soccer and kick-off tournaments with the staff there. We'd all put £1 in, and then the winner would take all. So I was quite lucky in some respects to be every Saturday around computer games and being able to play all the latest ones without having to buy them. So that sort of, for me, was my arcade, if you like. I didn't need arcades because they was there. I know some of the games weren't as good obviously at that point in time. I think the top of the range computer then was obviously the Amiga 500, and it was just about the time that Mega Drives and SNESes came out. So when the SNES came out, as you can imagine, that was quite a big leap forward. So do you know any good arcades that are still running? Unfortunately, as Steve mentioned, because I know I don't live too far away from him, there is no arcades around here anymore that I know of that that are still going. The only arcades I know of, as Steve mentioned, are the ones at the seaside, like Skegness, Ingermells or Scarborough or wherever. That's the only place I know that have the arcade games still. And as Steve mentioned also, there is more like the fruit machines. They might have an odd corner with an arcade in, or the odd game here and there. I suppose at the local cinema at Chesterfield, at Cineworld, they do have a small corner with a few arcade games in there, and I think one of them's Time Crisis and some other. Oh, I think at one point they did actually have Hard Driving in there, which was pretty good, and that was up until about a year ago. So I used to have a go on that when I went in. Just one point on that, I suppose the other arcade that we did get was when the fair came into the fair came into town, where I lived. There would always be like a small arcade at the back of the fair, mainly fruit machines, old fruit machines with the 2p machines and the pushing machines and the teddy bear grabbers. But usually they did have one or two like the stand-up old arcades in there. You might be lucky if you got Spy Hunter or something like that in there. Outrun was another favourite they had in there sometimes. So if they came to town, I might have gone and played on those machines when they were there. Well, thank you for watching, and I'll put a link with the questions on below. If you want to join in the tag and respond to it, then that's fine. Any comments, please comment in the comments below, and I'll make a video again soon. Thank you very much.